Chapter 2 of Ballet Shoes by Noel Streatfeild. Chapter 2 The Boarders. Pauline, Petrova and Posy had a very ordinary nursery life. Not a great many toys, because they had no relations to give them any. There was a good deal of passing down of clothes, because there was not a great deal of money, and no one knew when Gum would be back to provide any more. "It does seem mean, Nana," Sylvia said. "Posy never gets any new clothes at all, and Petrova hardly any, while Pauline has them all the time." "Ah, well," Nana looked proudly at Pauline. "So it is in good many nurseries, I must say. If anyone is going to have them, it's a good thing it's her. Pauline does pay for her dressing." So Pauline did. By the time she was 4, she was really lovely. A mass amount of white curls, huge blue eyes, and the sort of pink and white look seen in the best babies. Sylvia secretly admired Petrova more. She thought she looked interesting. She was too pale and too thin, but she had a deep-set brown eyes and her hair the colour of Jay's wig. Posy, at 2, suddenly surprised everybody by becoming a redhead. Up till then, she had very little hair, and that mostly mouse-coloured, but one morning a little red showed, and then after a week or 2, she was quite decidedly ginger. "I never cared for red hair," Nana said fondly, twisting a strand of Posy's around her finger. "Never could fancy it since I got scratched by a ginger cat as a child. But nicely kept, it can be striking." As soon as the children could talk, there was trouble about a name for them to call Sylvia by. Nana refused to allow her Christian name to be used. "It's not suitable, miss. They can say Miss Brown, or if you're willing, Auntie or Cousin Sylvia, but just Sylvia is rude. I'm not having it in my nursery." "But Nana," Sylvia argued, "I do hate Auntie and Cousin, and it isn't as if I was one." "What are you?" Pauline asked, "if you're not Cousin or Auntie? Nuffy." "A guardian, darling." Sylvia pulled her to her knee. "What would you like to call me?" "Guardian." Pauline spoke the word with care. "Guardian." "That's very nice, Pauline," Nana approved. You shall call Miss Brown Guardian, and very sensible too." Of course, she was never called Guardian, as it was too long and severe, but they compromised on Garney, which satisfied everybody. Pauline had a birthday in December, and when she was just going to be 6, Nana came to Sylvia one night when the 3 children were in bed. "It's time Pauline had an education, and it wouldn't hurt Petrova either. She's sharp as a cartload of monkeys. It'll do her good to have something to think about. What with my nurseries and Posy still no more than a baby, I've no time to be setting sums and that. Now, will you teach them, miss, or shall I send them to school?" Sylvia looked horrified. "Teach them? Goodness, I couldn't. I was a perfect fool at arithmetic. We'll send them to school." So Pauline and Petrova were sent to the junior house of a day school quite near their home. It was called Cromwell House, and they had jade green coats, tunics and barrettes. The tunics and barrettes had CH embroidered on them. Both the children were frightfully proud of themselves. "You wouldn't think, Garney," Petrova said, when she came out to show herself off in her school outfit, "that there is a child who won't be 5 till August." "You only look a baby." Pauline put her nose in the air. "Now anybody can see I was 6 last month." One morning at school pronounced the fact that the children had no real surname. Sylvia came to fetch them at 12. They shot out of the door and hung on each arm. "Garney, what is my real honest surname?" Pauline asked. They say it was brown, but I told them it wasn't because Nana always says that we are no relation. Sylvia took the hands of each of them. But darlings, I entered you both as brown. What other name could I give you? It's not our real name, Pauline objected. Petrova gave a tug at her hand to attract attention. Garni, on my necklace that Gum sent, he called us Fossil. So he did, Pauline nodded. Fossil is a lovely name, and our very own. I am Pauline Fossil. She leaned over to Petrova. And you are Petrova Fossil. Oh, she suddenly stood still. What is it? Sylvia asked. Pauline looked at Petrova. We don't want Posy to be a fossil, do we? No, said Petrova decidedly. But why not? Sylvia laughed. You can be well Fossil if you like, but I think you may as well all have the same name. Well, me and Pauline are at school, Petrova explained, and that Posy is only a child. We mightn't care to share a name with her when she's a little older, you see. Pauline added. I don't see, Sylvia said decidedly. Posy is a darling. However, run up to the nursery and see what she and Nana have to say. She opened the front door. Posy was toddling about the nursery, pushing a wooden horse. Pauline and Petrova caught hold of her. Posy, do you want to be called Fossil? Yes, said Posy, who had no idea what they were talking about. Want to call her what? Asked Nana. The children explained. It took her quite a while to grasp the discussion, as they both talked at once. Fossil. She pursed up her lips. Well, it's not the name I've ever heard before. Not for children. It's what the professor called all those dirty stones he brought home. But he did call it to us as well. Posy skipped about excitedly. So he did. Nana went on to her darning. It's a funny name, but it is as good as any other. Petrova leant up against her knee. We were asking Posy if she wanted it too. She said yes, but then she's so silly. She says yes to anything. Nana looked up surprised. If you are a fossil, so is Posy. I'm not having a whole lot of surnames in my nursery. You're all free. P. Fossil. One lot of marketing tapes, all free. Posy was to be 6 in September. Nana came to Sylvia in August. Posy will be 6 next month. It is dull for her to stick in the nursery alone. I thought maybe we should start at Cromwell House next term. Sylvia walked to the window. Nana noticed disapprovingly that she had got very thin lately, and that her hair was turning grey. Nana, Sylvia swung the blind cord to and fro. Do you realise the professor has been gone almost 6 years? Nana smoothed her apron. Must have been. He went just after Posy came. Well, before he left, he arranged with the bank about the money for all of us. Enough for 5 years. Nana looked startled. And it's finished? Almost. Of course I've tried to save, as you can never be sure of the professor. Nana pursed her lips in a disapproving way. But all she said was, no indeed, miss. So the thing is, Sylvia went on, I can't send Posy to school. As a matter of fact, I've got to take the others away. And even then, Nana could remember that though she had been Sylvia's nurse, her child was now a grown-up woman, and the sound of the sort of crack in her voice that people get when they are miserable brought all her nurse instincts to the top. There, dear, she said comfortingly. Don't you fuss. There's a way around everything if you look for it. Sylvia gave a miserable smile. I hope you're right. But there's a way around a good many things wanted in this house. First, there's the cost of looking after a house when there isn't any money. There's you and the other servants, and we all eat a lot. Nana thought a moment. Then her face lit up. How about boarders? Such a lot of empty rooms we have. Why don't we take some nice people in? Boarders? Sylvia looked startled. I don't think the professor would like them. Well, the eye doesn't see, the heart don't grieve. When I take Posy out tomorrow, I'll step into Harold's and put an advertisement in the paper. Oh, but Nana, the house will want a lot of alterations before we can take anybody. Nothing that a bit of shopping and encouragement can't do. In a week or two. We shan't get answers all that quick. What I say is, if you've got to do a thing, don't let the grass grow. Then there's the children's education. What about that? Nana patted the cushions straight on the sofa. I remember Miss Edwards that taught you, she said casually, telling me that you were very good at your books. Oh, Nana! Sylvia looked horrified. You don't think I ought to teach them? I could never do arithmetic. There's other learning than without sums. Sylvia shook her head. Reading, writing, arithmetic. You can't do proper lessons without those. It won't be for long, Nana argued. The professor will be back soon. I reckon you'll know enough to teach them until he comes. I might Pauline, but never Petrova. She's terribly good at figures. When I'm at Harold with Posy in the morning, I'll get you a book on figures. I've seen the kind that had sums at one end and the answers the other. You don't need to know nothing to write those down. She got up. Well, I'll be along to my bed. If you excuse me, we've a big day in front of us tomorrow. Getting set for the boarders and all. The 3 children found it fun helping to change the rooms around. Nana was busy all day long, making chair covers, curtains, and had not much time for them. So sometimes they went with Sylvia to buy furniture and choose elder gowns, and sometimes they helped in the kitchen. And sometimes, when nobody noticed, they assisted the decorators who were assembling the borders walls. It was, in fact, almost like a holiday. It is so nice doing things that you do not usually do. One afternoon, when they were all 3 in the kitchen, the front doorbell rang. Cook was teaching Pauline to make buns. Clara, the housemaid, was ironing. Posy was making animals out of pastry. And Petrova was sitting on the table in the window reading a book about Chiron cars, which had come in as an advertisement. Drat that bell, said Clara. How am I to get these hung by tomorrow in the boarders' room if that bell keeps ringing? It hasn't before, Pauline pointed out, reasonably. We've been down here simply hours, and it hasn't rung once. The bell rang again. Ought to be answered, Cook spoke firmly, partly because her word was the law in the kitchen, and partly because whoever answered it would not be her. She looked around, but everybody seemed busy. Then her eye fell on Petrova. Reading was not an occupation. It came in her view under the heading of Satan Finds. Petrova, dear, she said, we're all busy. You run up and see who it is. When Petrova had gone, she excused herself to Clara. It isn't what Nana or Miss Brown would hold to, but with us so busy, I must break a rule or two. Most likely it's just somebody begging. Petrova ran up the stairs and opened the front door with some difficulty, because the thing you turned was stiff. Outside was a gentleman and a lady. They smiled at Petrova, but she forgot all her manners and failed to smile back. Instead, she stared past them onto the road, where stood the very Chiron cow whose pictures she had been looking at in the kitchen. She turned to the man. Is that yours? Yes, I got it last week. Oh, Petrova looked longingly at the bonnet. She would have liked to look inside. The man, who was very fond of the insides of cars himself, sensed her interest. Nice cars, he said. Come and have a look. Petrova came, and together they examined it. When she asked questions, he explained. At last the lady patted his shoulder. John dear, we did not come here to show off the car, but to look at the rooms. Petrova raised her face. Her eyes were sparkling with pleasure. Oh, how lovely! When Garni said we would have to take boarders, I didn't think of a car coming to live here. The man laughed. It's us that will live here if we take the rooms, not the car, you know. It isn't house-trained. Look, there's my card. Will you take it to your mother and say we want to see the rooms? Petrova spelt the words out on the card. John Simpson, Clara Lumber, Malaya. Are you Miss Simpson? She asked the lady. Yes. Did you come all the way from Malaya too? Yes. It's a long way, Petrova said politely. Long enough away to be in a geography lesson. Mrs. Simpson stooped and put her arms round her. Could you take that card to your mother and ask if we could see the rooms? I haven't got a mother, Petrova explained. There's Garni and there's Nana. Which would you rather have? Is Garni the one who owns the house? Mrs. Simpson asked. Petrova considered this question. I don't think exactly. I think it truly belongs to Gam. But he's been away on a boat for years and years and years, ever since he brought Posy. Garni sort of has the house because he's away. She's his great niece, you see. Well, could we see Garni? Mrs. Simpson moved towards the front door. Petrova put on her best manners. Of course, please come in. When they had safely handed the Simpsons to Sylvia, she went back to the kitchen. What was it? Clara asked. You've been all the time. What have you been doing? Imagine. Petrova's face was quite pink with pleasure. It was a she-run car, and it's coming here as a boarder. A car? Clara laid down her iron. Do you mean to say we're starting a garage? If so, what are these curtains for? There are two people with it, Petrova explained. Mr. and Mrs. Simpson. They come from Malaya. Pauline turned to cook. That's the bit next to India where the Indian rubbers come out of trees. And motor tyres, Petrova reminded her. Never you two mind about Malaya, Cook said firmly. Quite enough to be able to buy a bit of Indian rubber. No need asking where it comes from. Is this Mr. and Mrs. Simpson taking the rooms, Petrova? Petrova looked surprised. That's what they've come for. They wouldn't come if they didn't want them, would they? Ah, Clara put her iron to her face to feel how hot it was. There's a lot to come to look at rooms, but do they take them? Don't they ever take them? Posy inquired. 1 in a million, said Cook. That's my experience. The Simpsons seemed to be the 1 in the million. They said they would be on leave for 6 months, or perhaps longer, and they would move into the Cromwell Road the next Monday. Garni told Petrova that she considered she had done the letting, and she would take her to the motor show as a reward. The next tenant was Miss Theodane. She was an instructor of dancing at the Children's Academy of Dancing and Stage Training. She was little and pretty, and wanted a room on the ground floor so that she would not disturb anyone when she was practising. The children stared at her over the stairs when she moved in. I thought she would wear shoes, like the one your mother left you, Pauline whispered to Posy. Posy thought of the tiny pale pink satin ballet shoes upstairs. Not when it's raining, she suggested. Look, Petrova, who was in the middle, dug an elbow into each of them. What's that red box? She spoke louder than she knew. Theodane looked up and smiled. It is a big gramophone. Perhaps you'll come down and hear it when I'm arranging my things. Will you? Pauline skipped down the stairs. Can we come after tea? That would be very nice. Petrova followed Pauline. All of us, or just Pauline? All of you. They went and found the gramophone very nice indeed. Theo let Pauline and Petrova wind it and change the records. Posy began to dance as soon as the music started. The other two were a bit shocked. You mustn't mind. She doesn't mean to show off. It's just because she's little. It's not showing off, said Theo, who was watching Posy with interest. Why don't we all dance? It is the right thing to do to music. It did seem to be, but she put on a record which had the most striking effect on the feet, even on Petrova, which was the least dancing feet in the family. When Nana came to fetch Posy to bed, she found the most hot, dishevelled party. Well, you've been having a time. She smoothed Posy's hair. Thank Miss Dane nicely, Posy, and say good night. Theo kissed Posy. She looked anxiously at Nana. I hope we haven't made too much noise. There was plenty, Nana said, but it hasn't done no harm. We let the other two rooms while you were at it. The three children threw themselves at her. Who, Nana? Did they look nice? Have they got cars? Have they got a gramophone? One at a time, said Nana firmly. They're both doctors. Lady doctors. Lady doctors? Pauline made a face, remembering various bottles of medicine that she had not cared for. I don't think we want those in the house. Nobody's ill. These aren't the sort of doctors that come when you're ill, Nana explained. Doctors for learning, they are. They coach. Posy looked interested. Like the pictures of John Gilfin. My sister and my sister's child. That one. Nana shook her head. No. Miss Brown says they're sort of coaching as teaching. Come on, Posy. Pauline and Petrova went to the drawing room, where Sylvia always read a bit before they went to bed. They were reading a book called The Secret Garden, which had belonged to Sylvia when she was a child. Neither Pauline nor Petrova could sit quiet while they were being read to. However interesting the book without something to do. Pauline had sewing and embroidering as well, very well for somebody not yet 10. Petrova was stupid with a needle, but very neat with her fingers. She was working on a model made in Morocco. It was a difficult model of an aeroplane, meant for much older children to make. Sylvia opened the book. Garni, Pauline said, do you think you are going to like having boarders? I shan't. Petrova screwed a tiny nut. Houses are meant for families, not strangers. Pauline wriggled excitedly in her chair. I shall like having Miss Dane. Oh, Garni, she has such a lovely gramophone. Petrova looked up. I shall like having Mr. and Mrs. Simpson best, because of their car. Pauline nodded at Sylvia. You'll have to like the poor doctors then. It's mean they shouldn't be liked by anyone. I shall like all the boarders, Sylvia said firmly, because they are going to pay enough money to bring you up properly. She opened the book. Do you remember what happened last time? That is the end of chapter 2, The Boarders. Thank you, and don't forget to like and subscribe.